Hello, guys, and welcome. Our discussion really today is describing the benefits of Azure Active Directory. Now, on my left hand side, you see a, a rectangular box representing an on premises location, and on my very right hand side are two cloud locations. One is called an IaaS, and the other is called a SaaS. Okay. Now, the interesting thing here is that all these locations have resources. All these locations have resources. Now, resources could be code running on a VM somewhere on your on premises. It could be a web app running on your cloud platform. It could be Office 365, what we call them 365 today. It could be another, maybe SharePoint. I'll call it SHPT. Could be another SaaS solution out there. Now, just as you will not allow anybody else to walk into your front door at home, neither would you want anybody else to walk to your precious resources on premises or in the cloud or on SaaS. And so, what Microsoft has created is what we call the Azure Active Directory. So, Azure Active Directory, AAD. It's multi-tenant cloud-based directory and identity management service. And Azure AD helps to support user access to resources and applications. So let's say you have an application that is on premises. You need the right person to administer the application or connect to it or use it in any way. In any case, you wouldn't want any rogue person who is unknown to you, is not legitimate on your network to access your resources because you've left it open. So the right thing to do is you got to know who is employed by your company and you create objects that represents them. Okay, so the Azure AD takes care of internal apps located on premises on a corporate network. It also takes care of external resources like Microsoft 365, even your Azure portal, and even SaaS applications. Okay, and there are many of them. And of course, if you have IaaS, which is your infrastructure as a service, your VMs, your serverless functions, your storage blobs, the things you create under your subscription, you need to make sure that you can administer them securely and safely. And to do that, the Azure AD is the tool for it. Okay, so on the Azure AD, you can create users and you can also create groups. So let's represent the group by 3 people in a box. So can you also create things like service principals, and those service principals are used for applications for authentication. Okay, now Windows Server Active Directory uses a technology called for authentication called Kerberos and NTLM. The cloud side, which happens to be Azure AD, supports many more. Supports SAML, LoRaWAN, OpenID, and WS Federation. Okay, so it's really amazing the things you can do with this. Moving on ahead, there are things you need to know about Azure AD and its features. Azure AD, get my pen tool ready, supports something we call SSO. You know what that is? It's single sign-on. Azure AD provides secure single sign-on to web apps on the cloud and on premises. So if you've got web apps here and on premises, Azure AD would provide a single sign-on. So users can sign in with the same set of credentials that connects them to web apps on your on-premises internal network on your corporate network, as well as the same user ID, okay, on a web app that is also located in the data center somewhere in the cloud. Okay. Now, there are many commonplace devices that Azure AD supports. That includes things like your iOS, your Mac OS, your Android devices, your Windows devices. And it offers an amazing common experience across all these devices. Users can launch apps from a personalized web-based panel or a mobile app, Microsoft 365, or any custom company portal, which is actually a very big thing now, using the existing web credential. So this credential can get them into all these securely, and they're all governed by this amazing piece of tech called Azure AD. Secure remote access. Azure AD enables secure remote access for on-premises web apps. Secure access can include multi-factor, so MFA, as you know, authentication, conditional access policies, group-based access management, and users can also access on-premises web apps from everywhere, even including from the same portal. Okay. Now we talk about cloud extensibility. Azure AD can extend to the cloud to help you manage a consistent set of users, groups, passwords, and devices across environments. So your Azure AD, you can actually join devices like your laptops, or let's actually say you had a desktop. They can be called, sometimes called AD joined, and your Azure AD can control how this device is accessed and utilized, and can also document and track activities happening on those boxes. Azure AD is extremely powerful. Let me talk of something called self-service support. Now, Azure AD allows you to delegate tasks to company employees that might otherwise be completed by admins with high access privileges. Providing self-service app and password management through verification steps can definitely reduce help desk calls and enhance security. So you don't have to always come to the admin to tell them to do important things like changing passwords. You can actually create a self-service support SSP. You can add an R to it for requests. You can come in and based on some important questions and answers you provide for verification, you can now change your own password. And if you are also help this person, you can change the password of people um, on your corporate network, either in here or if allowed on premises. Okay, so these are benefits that Azure AD gives to you and I. Now, there are many more, and so I'll put a link in the description below for you to explore more. But before I leave, I want to explain about 5 different terminologies when it comes to Azure AD. Okay, the first one we're going to talk about is identity. So an identity is an object that can be authenticated. So an object that has a username and a password, okay, can be authenticated. Okay, that is called an identity. Okay, identities can also be applications or other servers that require authentication by using a secret. Now you can see a secret as a very long gibberish text, makes no sense to you, but servers understand that they don't need username passwords because they're machines. Okay, so they also are also identities. They use secrets, certs, certificates, and keys. Azure AD is actually the underlying product that provides the identity service. Okay. Then the next thing we talk about is an account. An account is an identity that has data associated with it. To have an account, you must first have a valid identity. You can't have an account without an identity. So identity is the base. Once you have data associated with this particular identity, it becomes an account. And then an Azure AD account is an identity created through Azure AD. So Azure AD account, ACC, okay, or another Microsoft cloud service such as Microsoft 365, which is normally hosted here. Okay, identities are stored in Azure AD, so you have your user object here, almost like stored in a database. Okay, and are accessible to your organization's cloud service subscriptions. The Azure AD account is also called a work or school account. For those of you who have Windows machines, you always see that. It's asking you, are you setting up a work or school account? Okay. Then we go into something called the Azure tenant. The Azure tenant simply is a directory. Okay. An Azure tenant is a single dedicated and trusted instance of Azure AD. Each tenant, also called a directory, represents a single organization. So a tenant represents organization. This organization is called Expert Azure Cloud Hub. Oh wow, each. Haha, that is very interesting. When your organization signs up for Microsoft Cloud Service subscription, a new tenant is automatically created. So when you sign up for Microsoft Azure Cloud Service, you get a tenant tied to your company or your company name. Okay? Because each tenant is a dedicated and trusted instance of Azure AD, you can create multiple tenants or instances. So let's say the company name is called john.com. You create other tenants for manufacturing.john.com, other tenants for maybe sales.john.com if you ever needed it. But then here comes the big one, Azure subscription. Azure subscription is used to pay for Azure cloud services, period. Each subscription is joined to a single tenant. So once you create your account, you're given a tenancy, of course, like a tenant in a house, renting a house, and you're paying Azure in dollars and pounds or yens or CDs or whatever it is. You're paying that to Microsoft Azure using your Azure subscription. And by the way, you can create many subscriptions. Okay, so that clears it up for us. So always remember what an identity is, what an account is, what an Azure AD account represents, an Azure tenant, and Azure subscription. Okay, so that should be it for today. I'd like to thank you for viewing, and I'll see you on the next one. Follow the description below for a link that helps you to understand this concept a bit more. Maybe I should just give you a quick demo of what it looks like on Azure itself. So I'm going to open the portal and head to portal.azure.com. I can go to AAD using a different URL, but I just want to show you what it looks like. So when I log in here, that is Azure Cloud Masters, you see the icon here being Azure Active Directory. This is Azure Active Directory. You can see that. Okay. All right. When I click into it, it tells you quickly that it's tied to a tenant. It actually gives you a keyword that it says search your tenant. Let me make sure this fits in okay. Control 0. Okay, I'll bring it over here. Okay, so this blade tells you a bit about your Azure Active Directory. Okay, so I've got a name for it. I've got my tenant ID. Okay, I've got a free license at the moment. Okay, I've got 6 users, so I can create a new user, and I can create groups. I can create app registrations. We can talk about these in time to come. But I hope this has been informative. I'd like to thank you for viewing. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you and have a good one.